I never expected my life to lead me to Alaska. Not like this. Not for a job that nobody should want. The morning I arrived, the air hit me like a brick wall of ice. The kind that bites your lungs and makes you question your life decisions. The tiny regional jet that brought me in looked more like a toy than something capable of carrying humans. But it got me there, if barely. When I stepped onto the frozen gravel runway, the pilot wasn't even out of the cockpit. No handshake, no goodbye, just the door slamming shut and the aircraft rolling away. I stood there alone, in a world made entirely of white and gray, listening to the wind blow across the runway like a whisper between teeth. Then the SUV rolled into view. Black, windows tinted, engine rumbling like it resented the cold. The driver was bundled head to toe, so much that all I could see were two dark eyes peering at me from inside the hood. "You Harrow's new hire?" the man asked without introducing himself. "Yeah, that's me." "Load up." He didn't help with my bag. Nobody here seemed the type. As we drove away, the runway shrank behind us until it disappeared beneath the snow. The world narrowed to a winding road, barely plowed, weaving through forests so thick, the trees seemed to physically lean inward. The kind of place where a person could scream and the sound would never come back. "You get many travelers out here?" I asked. "No." I waited for more, got nothing. "Wildlife?" I asked. That earned me a glance, just a glance. Enough. The way he said it made my skin tighten. Not fear exactly, more like the sense of stepping onto thin ice and hearing the first crack. For another hour, we drove in silence while the sun dipped lower and lower. It was barely afternoon, yet the light already started to die. The forest turned black around us. Then I saw it. The Harrow Estate. The mansion wasn't a mansion in the glamorous sense. It was enormous, yes, but it looked like something that had been built to withstand siege. Thick beams of blackwood, stone foundation, windows reinforced with metal crossbars. Smoke trickled from a chimney the size of a tree trunk. "Here," the driver said. He didn't pull in close to the entrance. He stopped 20 yards out, like he didn't want to be too near the place. The moment I stepped out, he put the SUV in reverse. "Hold on," I said, leaning toward the window. "What do I need to know?" He hesitated only long enough for the frost on the glass to fog with his breath. "Stay out of the woods at night." "Why?" His eyes flicked toward the tree line as if checking whether something was listening. "Wolves?" "Not wolves." Before I could ask anything else, he was gone. Tires spitting snow. I turned toward the mansion just as the front door creaked open. A tall man in a midnight blue robe stepped out, pale face half lit by the warm glow behind him. "Jonathan Harrow." "You must be the groundskeeper," he said. "Guess so," I replied. He didn't smile. Not really. His lips twitched like he'd forgotten how. "You'll find the keys inside. We prefer to keep unnecessary doors locked here." His voice was soft, deliberate. "There are circumstances in the area." "What kind of circumstances?" He didn't answer, just swept his hand toward the door. Inside, the warmth felt unreal. Fireplaces burned in nearly every room. Harrow gave me a quick tour, talking fast, like he wanted to finish before something outside interrupted. He showed me the staff cabin behind the mansion, a small building connected by a shoveled path leading into more darkness. "That's yours," he said. Generator shed is behind it. If the power cuts out, you fix it immediately. Storm issues? A shadow crossed his face. Yes, storms. That night, I unpacked while the cabin walls snapped from the temperature difference. I told myself it was normal. At around 2 a.m., something crunched in the snow outside. Not a soft animal sound, something heavy, deliberate. Footstep, another. Then breathing, deep, drawn out, almost sad in how hollow it sounded. I froze. After a moment, I crept to the window and carefully lifted the curtain by an inch. Tracks, huge, deep, circling my cabin once like a predator inspecting a trap. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass, watching the tree line, but saw nothing except shifting shadows and white wind. I told myself it was a bear. It had to be a bear. But I've seen bear tracks before. Nothing alive should weigh enough to sink that deep into frozen snow. I barely slept at all. And when morning finally came, the tracks were gone, swept away by the night wind. But new ones led from the trees to the mansion's perimeter lights. 3 of them were torn down. 3 in one night. That was the first time I felt it. The sense of being watched, not by nature, not by an animal, by something starving enough that it no longer cared about being seen. I didn't sleep after that first night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined the sound outside. The crunching of snow, the measured weight of footsteps circling the cabin, the kind of pacing a predator uses when it's testing the borders of its next meal. Morning light didn't make the fear go away. It only made it visible. When I stepped outside to shovel the path between the staff cabin and the mansion, my boots sank directly into the tracks left from the night before. The prints looked even worse in daylight, wide, deep, unnaturally spaced apart. Whatever made them wasn't lumbering. It walked with a deliberate, stalking rhythm. And the snow above each paw print was lightly stained. A faint reddish-brown smudge. Blood. Fresh enough not to freeze. Fresh enough to feel warm in my imagination. I found myself scanning the tree line repeatedly, expecting to see a shape, a shadow, something watching. The forest didn't move, didn't sway. Only stood there in rows like silent observers. I should have told Harrow right then. Instead, I told myself what I'd always told myself whenever something was too frightening to fully accept. Don't be dramatic. Right. As if drama had anything to do with it. Nakem. The day passed slowly. Too slowly. I shoveled snow, salted the steps, brought in loads of chopped wood to stack near the mansion's side entrance. Harrow insisted on keeping a fire going in 2 of the main rooms for the psychological value, as he put it. To me, it felt like lighting candles inside a cave to keep the darkness from noticing you. Around mid-afternoon, Harrow stepped outside to inspect the estate grounds. For a man who seemed terrified of the forest, he had a strange habit of wandering near it, just close enough to see into the trees, but never far enough to actually disappear into them. "Do you believe in old instincts?" he asked casually as I joined him. "What kind of instincts?" "The ones animals carry over generations, passed down like scars." He kept staring at the woods. We humans used to have them too. Fear of the dark, fear of quiet places. He turned and looked me dead in the eyes. Fear of being hunted. Something cold slid down my spine. I wanted to ask him what exactly he thought was hunting out here. But before I could, he returned inside abruptly, leaving me standing alone with the wind biting at my face. Not long after, while I was reorganizing the small tool shed behind my cabin, I heard something move. A soft whoomph of snow being stepped on. A heavy footfall. No pattern, just one. Then another. I held my breath and slowly turned toward the woods. Nothing. But the silence that followed felt louder than any sound could. When I exhaled, my breath came out in a shaky plume. Enough, I muttered to myself. Get a grip. I went back to sorting through tools, wrenches, salt bags, fuel canisters. Nothing to distract my mind from the sense of being watched. Then the second sound came. Not a footstep, a low groan. Like a long, exhausted breath forced through a throat clogged with misery. It came from the woods. Not too deep inside. Close, too close. A bear, I told myself. Probably injured, probably cold, probably nothing. Probably. I shut the tool shed door and practically jogged back to the mansion. Inside, Harrow was in his study. Fire roaring, whiskey in hand, staring at a grandfather clock that ticked too loudly. "You look pale," he said. "There's something in the woods." "There always is." He took a sip. "This is Alaska." "No," I said, shaking my head. "It's big and hungry." He gave me a peculiar look then, half understanding, half something I couldn't identify. "It's not your concern," he finally said. "At least, not yet." "Not yet?" He didn't answer. That evening, I made myself dinner in the staff cabin, a can of chili heated on a small stovetop. I wasn't very hungry, but I couldn't stomach the thought of going back to the mansion. Harrow was too calm, too detached, or maybe too resigned, which was even worse. The sun dipped early, as it always did. Darkness poured across the estate like ink spreading through water, thick and unstoppable. By 7 p.m., the world outside had vanished. By 8 p.m., the wind began to rise. By 9 p.m., the sound returned. Footsteps, slow, pausing between each one. Approaching, I froze in the middle of the cabin, spoon halfway to my mouth. Crunch, crunch, long pause, crunch. Always from the same direction, the woods. Always stopping just out of sight of the window. I moved toward the curtain, lifting it just a fraction. White snow, black trees. Nothing between them, nothing I could see. But I could hear it, close enough that I felt it in the floorboards. Crunch. My breath fogged the glass. The cabin felt suddenly too small, too fragile, too alone. I lowered the curtain. Seconds later, something brushed the outside wall. Light, testing, then again, heavier, like a hand trailing along the wood. Or claws. I didn't breathe. Then a dragging sound, long, heavy, like something pulling weight across the snow. I backed away until my legs bumped the bed. The dragging stopped. Silence. Then, here. A breathing sound, wet, hollow, directly outside the cabin. A shadow moved past the window. Not fast, not hesitant. Slow, intentional. It circled the cabin once. just once, then moved back toward the woods, leaving tracks I didn't dare look at. By morning, the snow had covered everything, but the feeling didn't leave. The dread stayed lodged inside my chest. Harrow greeted me at the mansion door. "You heard it," he said. Not asked. Said. "How do you know?" "The lights." He gestured behind him. Half the perimeter lights were destroyed, ripped from their posts, cords frayed, metal bent. "It's testing the boundaries again," Harrow murmured. "It gets bolder every winter." "What does?" I asked. He didn't answer. He simply turned and walked back inside, leaving me in the cold, staring at the mangled metal posts. The silence of the Alaska morning wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. And for the first time, I understood. I wasn't the one watching the forest. The forest, and something inside it, had been watching me.